time to get started. So we're going to be opening up with data-driven design, how we're using data for creative purposes. I've got the absolute pleasure to be joined by Dana Burns. She's the CEO of Bold Metrics, Ganesh Subramanian, who's the CEO of Stylumia, and Tiffany Radden, who is the Manager of Technical Design from Carhartt. Hello, everyone. I think let's get started with some introductions. And Dana, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you for the quick intro anyway. I'm really happy to be on the panel with Tiffany and Ganesh as well. So hello to everybody. I'm Dana. I'm the CEO of Bold Metrics, as was mentioned. So a little bit of very high level Bold Metrics. We have AI body modeling solutions that capture customer body data information related to product details, so we can surface an understanding of what size a consumer would be and describing that size to the consumer, all in an effort to help consumers understand their best fit and size so that we can reduce returns. The technology continues to learn over time on the body measurements of consumers as it relates to the patterns and designs and the sizing gradation of the products. And so we relay all of this data upstream. It can be really helpful for technical designers, style-related insights, et cetera. So I'm approaching this panel from the perspective of consumer data from the body measurement perspective side of things and how we can scalably capture consumer body data and relate that to interesting things for creative purposes, should we say, on this panel topic. So thanks. Happy to be here.
Good stuff. Thanks, Dana. Tiffany, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. My name is Tiffany Radon. I'm Manager of Technical Design at Carhartt. Carhartt is a 133-year-old workwear company based out of Detroit, Michigan. And of course, in technical design, we are part of that product development process, and we use data in a multitude of ways. I think every tech designer somewhere out there in the multiverse has another job as a data scientist, because we love math, we love numbers, we love how to incorporate all that information to help us build better product. And at Carhartt, we're focused on building the best product for our consumers, and fit and comfort is a huge component of how our consumers use our garments. So we want them to look good as well, but fit is so important, which is why we're fortunate that technical design is a big focus area of our product development process at Carhartt.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. And I think we're going to be starting on that topic to get us going. But before that, Ganesh, last but not least, if you'd like to introduce yourself for the audience.
Yeah, hi everyone. First of all, thanks Papaya Apparel for the opportunity. I'm Ganesh Subramanian, founder and CEO of Stylumia. We are here to enable brands, retailers, and manufacturers take consumer-centric design and product decisions so that they connect with the consumer, make lesser mistakes, overall reduce the wastage in the fashion and lifestyle industry globally. As we all know, 1 out of 2 products do not sell well, and 50 billion products go to landfill every year because of the supply-demand gap. Our existence is to provide as much of consumer intelligence on a dynamic basis, pre-recession, during recession, post-recession, how the future would look like, to ensure that right from design. And I think today I'm seeing this panel from the point of view of how consumer insights on products can go from product creation, conceptualization into technical design, into the life cycle of bringing the product to the consumer.
Fantastic. Thanks. Let's get started then. The first question that we have today is talking about how is technical design lacking data today, limiting capability for data-driven decisions? It's a loaded question. There's a lot to pick through there. Dana, I'm going to start with you, please, if you could take us through a little bit of how is technical design lacking data and the limited capability for the decision-making there.
Sure. And I will take it through the perspective of, as I mentioned, on the body data side of things. So when we think about technical design across ubiquitously almost across a lot of different brands and retailers that are looking to ascertain what is their sizing gradation and their patterns, the data that is utilized to assess that fit coverage is often lacking of consumer data, specifically of that brand or retailer's actual customers' body data. And so we're typically relegated as an industry towards, fit model data, which is, an individual human being, literally, that the brand might identify as, the average person that would, body measurement wise, that would fit in the size medium, and then design that size medium sizing wise to fit that person. Maybe you take a body scan of that person and you're doing it within a CAD environment, and then applying a gradation for the smaller and larger sizes. The arrival of that fit model from a body measurement perspective is often assumption driven. It's less data driven as towards your actual customers' body measurements and the statistical distribution of your specific customer demographic. So that's a limiting factor. And what has become more relevant over the years certainly is facilitating fit coverage studies, using body scanning related studies of various geographical populations. And from those geographic populations, being able to see, okay, of my gradation design, what kind of fit coverage do I have towards this population of body scans? And that's great because it is taking us more towards a data-driven approach to understanding our fit coverage. However, what I still think lacks in technical design is an understanding of the sizing as it relates to your actual customer demographic in terms of body measurement distributions and statistics. So we kind of look at it from that perspective and finding a scalable way to approach capturing your customers' body measurements, the distribution of their body measurements, et cetera, and relate that to consumer patterns associated with purchase and returns behavior, and connecting those two together. So if you can capture those body measurements and then understand which sizes are being returned more or less, and then relate that potentially upstream within technical design to understand, is there something that we can adjust within our product design from a sizing gradation that can address some of the reasons why perhaps like the plus size categories are having a higher return rate, or maybe the smaller sizes, or we need to refine the petite sizing, et cetera. So a scalable way to capture the body measurements of your customers so that it can become more of a data-driven process on the feedback loop side of things, so that you can continuously collect this information and use it to continuously understand and improve your technical design.
That's really interesting. Tiffany, can I bring you in on that? Because I know that, especially when you're talking about some of the reasons why you talk about plus sizing. And I know that even at one of the recent events, Carhartt were talking about genderless sizing as well. So what's your take on what Dana said, and also from Carhartt's perspective on this matter?
I wholeheartedly agree. There's opportunity for improvement there. Carhartt, like any other brand out there, has usually by gender a single body standard that we use to design and develop product for. And those body standards are based on, body data that comes from a broad range of people across, in our case, it's across North America, since Carhartt is a US-based brand. But then, when we design and develop product for that single body standard, there's a level of understanding across all of us in at least in the product development field that one body standard is a statistical average. It's not going to work for every consumer out there. So when we design and develop product, that feedback loop of how is it servicing our consumer? Is it, what other body standards are out there that maybe we aren't capturing within, the range of acceptable fit on the bell curve of bodies that are out there. So being able to have access to the consumer feedback, Carhartt has some great dashboards that we've built to capture that feedback, but the level of detail is still lacking from where we as technical designers would love to see it, to be able to turn it into actionable insights.
Interesting. Ganesh, where do you stand on this?
Look at us as consumer research. Let's say, for example, you ask this question and say, what kind of silhouettes of products which consumers in a given territory, let's take United States or United Kingdom or Europe, and say that what kind of silhouettes consumers are preferring today. Now, imagine this, you have to do consumer research on a dynamic basis because body shapes don't change overnight, right? And there are some standard elements to this, and there are some variable elements to it. And you would all know that a given style may not do well with given attributes. A dark color might not go with some silhouettes and light color. So the question here is, how do you find what kind of product attributes go well for a consumer? We don't look at from a individual consumer perspective. We provide geo-local insights on attribute preferences of consumers in a given geography. For example, let's say, can you tell me what are the top 100 silhouettes which are doing well in the United States in price points between X to Y, right? In my genre of consumers, in my chosen inspirations, chosen brands of preferences. Now that's available in few clicks. And some of our customers use this information to actually inform the kind of products that they should be thinking of creating. Now I'm going to reveal some interesting insights, right? And look at this attribute and see the kind of error that as an industry that we are making. We just looked at one attribute, which may not be related to today technical design. All, as we create 3D designs, we imbibe all the attributes into the product, right? For example, color. We recently looked at, from one of the leading color forecast agency that a lot of fashion brands are using today. We just looked at their forecast of 2021 and say what would happen in 2022. We looked at all the colors and then validated with actually what happened in 2022, what did really customers appreciate. We got a shocking number. The accuracy of color forecast is 14.7%. Now, this is not 14.7% of the forecast colors actually got into the winning bucket. Top 30 percentile of products had only 14.7% penetration of the color forecast. Now, this is just color. There is a lot of error happening on various attributes, whether it is the silhouette, whether it's a shape, whether it's a length, whether it's a neck. Now, what we do is collect dynamic intelligence of what consumers prefer. What do they buy most? Not what do they tell, right? The current ways of consumer research, other ways of consumer research, go and ask a consumer, right? Throw a lot of new products and say, can you tell me, how do you rate this on price? How do you rate this on color? How do you rate this on silhouette or something, right? Now, when consumers actually get into the market, what they do is very different from what they say. In a competitive environment, right? It's not what you individually prefer. You look at all the choices and finally go for, what you think relatively good. And we do that on a dynamic basis, come back with all of this intelligence. And as we speak, we are partnering, initially in our journey, we were focusing on design, buying and merchandising, not the technical design. What we now realized is the absolute creations happens here. Think about all the consumer insights flow into the technical design platform. As you're creating a 3D design, imagine there is a place where you say, consumers, the kind of product that you're thinking of creating, these are all what consumers like in your customer segment. Informing them at the point of impact, right? So that's something that we are working on. We're integrating with some of the technical design software players and say, how do we provide insight across the value chain from technical designs into product creators and into buying and merchandising?
Yeah, and I think, we've definitely got a question on that coming up in a little bit. Is there any, beyond the sizing data that we've established is definitely lacking, what other data sets are lacking from the tech design process that we feel maybe we could overcome and actually start to collect that data? Tiffany?
I think the other big part outside of our current product development process is being more proactive. Right now we're utilizing a lot of data in reactive ways, either reacting to product that's already in market or reacting to consumers who don't fit into our current body standards and we're hearing about it. I think another way we could, where we as tech designers are limited in the data that we have access to is understanding what are our consumers' need states going to be in 5 years or 10 years from now. There's so much analytics and big data out there that we as tech designers aren't able to interpret on ourselves. We just don't have the data analysis knowledge. You know, we're great at developing product, but not so great at interpreting data always, especially when we're looking at it in such a broad way. So I think understanding how we can better use consumer data to anticipate our consumers' needs. You know, if we had, like Ganesh said, if we ask our consumers what they want, we don't always get answers that are truthful to how the consumers respond to the product. So trying to use data in a better way to anticipate what our consumers' need states are going to be, what technologies are they going to be using that we in the apparel industry might need to incorporate or react to in how we build product. You know, I think there's a lot of opportunity out there to not ask our consumers what they want, but to anticipate what their needs are going to be in the future to help us to better develop products that are going to be, you know, as a brand, we always want to be first to market with something. So utilizing data in a way that would help us design products, you know, and be a little bit smarter about what we're developing in a non-reactionary way instead of what we're doing now, which is reacting to consumer feedback, which we need to do as well. But it'd be great if we could be a little bit more proactive in addition to help us be smarter about what we design and develop.
Yeah, I like that. You know, what people say they want and what they buy or what they like or what they need are often different things. And I guess, Ganesh, you've probably seen that as well when you're looking at the data. I'm sure Dana as well. When you're looking at the data, certainly from the side that you were on, and now you're looking at the technical design data as well, you must be seeing this a lot.
No, absolutely. I think, you know, sometimes I really want to, you know, go back to react versus proact, right? What we can see is factually, and let's start from, you know, what is data? Data itself is history. Data can never be future, right? If it isn't, there is no data, right? Data itself is history. Now, the question here is, how do you use the data that we see and predict the future, right? So there's a lot of future in the present, right? That's what the data story is. You know, just to give you an example, we were looking at trend propagation across attributes from all the data across the world that we are observing. You know, there is a notion that when we talk to a lot of people in the industry, there's a notion that there is a waterfall of fashion. It all starts in runway, then maybe moving into luxury, moving into premium, maybe fast fashion is catching up after that. I'm going to reveal something which are going to be shocking. Those who we think are following actually are leading. Would you believe that there are trend inspirations from fast fashion getting into runways? This is data speaking. So we think that runways actually set the trend for the evolution, which isn't so. Having said that, yes, there is trend propagation from runway to luxury. There is propagation from luxury to fast fashion, but there is also reverse happening. Now, I really want to say that I think we need to look at and also, you know, challenge some of the assumptions that we have, right? Which is to say, what does the data actually say vis-a-vis what we think today? And this is also not static. What I'm sharing with you is based on the analysis of 2022 and 21 data trend propagation, right? In fact, sitting here, we can now predict 23 with close to 80 to 90% accuracy on fair amount of attributes, knowing where a particular brand is positioned.
What did you say? Something of attributes?
Yes. When I say attributes could be anything, right? You could take color, you could take silhouette, you could take any of the physical attributes of the product, and which all finally getting into design creation. Imagine you put all of this into the raw material and then say, okay, I just want to have a concoction of these attributes which are predicted and then use our judgment on top of it. How do we take informed decision? I think that's the whole point.
Yeah, 100%. Dana, let's get into the sort of how this data is being used then, because I think we've covered what's lacking and what we could use, but what we do have, how is this feedback and how is this data used to improve the product and ensure that it's ready for the consumer and what the consumer needs or likes rather than what they've told us that they necessarily want, perhaps?
Yeah, so I guess let's walk through the journey of the development process. There's a lot that goes into the inception of, from our perspective, again, everything around fit and sizing, from the development of that sizing gradation, the technical design of those sizes and how we arrive at the final sizes that hit the market. And so what can we collect to allow for feedback on how are these fits performing? There's been some mention around, designing for one geographical population and then expanding to another population or another country or continent, et cetera. And so even some of those elements where you have a certain designs for a certain demographic within one country and you're expanding to another country, like is your sizing going to need some updating for that new population of people that you're marketing towards? And so there's a lot of elements there where products are released to market, and there is still ways that we can improve upon a feedback loop into the system so that we can collect more insightful data that's actionable from a technical design perspective. So, right now when we release to market, what are we dependent upon? Primarily, customer reviews, ratings and reviews, commentary about fits, and of course, insights from return behavior. But there's additional things that we can do there. When you're selling to a consumer, there's a point of, engagement with the consumer where you can have an opportunity to collect more intricate data about that consumer and utilize that in actionable ways to help with this feedback process. So that's what we do. So we have a way to capture body measurements accurately on that consumer in a way that's very easy to engage with. So, adoption rates is hugely important there. So people actually do the thing. And so then tying that to the returns behavior, tying that to this, consumer behavior of how they're interacting with the product, to develop actionable insights so that allows for this feedback process so that you can start to glean, differences in fit preferences, for example, in different geographical populations and how that might relate differently to reasons behind certain return behaviors. And so this is the type of thing that I think we can really improve upon as an industry as ways to further incite a feedback loop to allow for more interesting and real actionable insights so we can get smarter and create better products that better address, our customers.
How might you collect someone's fit preference data? Just as a random question that popped into my head.
Yeah, great question. So this is something that we think a lot about. Again, from my perspective, of course, it all starts with body measurements, right, of the consumer. So what we do is capture those body measurements, and then we relate it to initially, or actually sort of throughout the process, how the intended fit by design was. And how are using that body measurement data, how are consumers wearing the products from a fit preference perspective? And then again, you can slice this by segmentation, geographical segmentation, et cetera, and other various ways to segment the data. So you can glean fit preference from a relational consideration of the body measurement of a consumer to the product and a comparative analysis to the intended fit by design. So then you could start to track these trends over time. So you could see, within this segment cohort analysis, we see that these consumers are preferring actually a slightly more snug fit versus what was intended in the design inception, or maybe they're preferring a more loose fit. And so you could start to gather these trends over time for the certain cohort analysis. And this kind of starts to glean insights on trends changing in fit preference for various consumer cohorts. So it's pretty interesting, but I think it all starts with like really an understanding of the consumer body measurements and sort of like tracking those trends over time.
Yeah.
David, I may pitch in just to add on to that. Where we can come in and provide is, we started with geography level preferences of fits and other attributes. Just to add on to that, where we are right now able to provide the same geo-segmentation at the level of even a zip code. We can actually come back and say the consumers in New York versus Alabama versus Denver, what are they preferring in my target segment? And when we say preference, it's not every consumer there, the top 10 percentile who contribute to the volume of business in that zip code. They contribute significantly to the volume of business in that zip code. Now, that's available now. If you want to geo-local assortment, right, now that's possible right now, whether in the form of physical measurements or in the form of other attributes together.
And just to tack onto that, I think one of the things at Carhartt we're seeing as our brand awareness grows and our consumer segmentation grows, traditionally when I joined the company almost 15 years ago, Carhartt's consumer was strictly workwear. Our consumers shop at TSC and at the mom and pop workwear shops across the country. But over the last 15 years, as the brand has grown, we're welcoming a broad assortment of new consumers into the brand, not just geographically, not just from a geolocation, but also from the standpoint of what consumer segmentation they fall into. Are they, a consumer who's used to shopping in the outdoor market? Are they a consumer who's used to shopping, who maybe does a bit of DIY on the weekend, but it's not their primary profession? So at Carhartt, one of the things we're looking at is not only how does fit preference change based on not only geographical location, but what consumer segmentation that consumer falls into, because we're definitely finding they have really different preferences if they're used to shopping at, out in the outdoor market versus a true workwear consumer. So that's one of the things we've been looking at with our data sets is understanding those preferences across consumer segmentation. And that's really driving the differences in the expectation of fit preference and ease over body and what our consumers are looking for from the brand. So even though Carhartt has a broad range of fit offerings in most of our products, we're really finding that how we communicate or even working with our merch team to understand which fits are showing up in which retail channels, that's where we're starting to understand some of that data that we're getting back and some of those feedback from the consumer to understand how to react to it. If our largest fit tee for our true workwear consumer winds up in an active outdoor channel, those consumers might not understand that fit. So we find that consumer segmentation is a big part of how we react to the fit feedback.
That's really interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is it quite common to record and put down in the tech design process the intended fit of a product?
Yes, yeah. That's built into our design and development process. So
and does the consumer see that as well? Are they aware of that when they're buying the product as well?
We try hard to make sure they're aware of it, but I think that's still an opportunity for us. In tech design, we're throughout our entire, our merch team, our designers, everyone wants to make sure we're building the product appropriately for the intended use or the intended consumer segment. So I think where we still have an opportunity is making sure that, like I mentioned, the right fits are showing up in the right retail channels, in those right consumer segmentations, depending on that avenue when we're taking it to market, as well as making sure that we're understanding, building the right product and then making sure it's showing up in the right places with the right fit in the appropriate consumer channels. So that way those consumers are seeing more of a fit that we know they're looking for, rather than something that's going to feel foreign to them, or they're going to have a poor impression of the brand to say this fit is awful or oh my gosh, I had to size down 2 sizes, or those types of things, because we want to make sure that our consumers aren't having a bad experience with the fit of our brand. Fit is something that's so important to us in terms of function and comfort, that I think that's something we're beginning to have a much greater awareness of, but certainly understanding the reaction to from the consumer feedback loop too.
And by the way, just to add in there too, there are ways to have consumers know and to communicate ways of how that fit will be compared to like an intended fit by design concept. And that's something that we think a lot about at Bold Metrics, and relaying, this is your best size. But not only that, this is how it's going to fit across your critical points of measure, oftentimes compared to that intended fit by design. So it might be slightly snug compared to how it's designed for. And yeah, with fit preference, I mean, the complexities of fit preference can increase exponentially. I mean, some of the clients that were, servicing sizing recommendations and AI body modeling solutions for such a disparate kinds of applications. I mean, we service size recommendations and technology for like functional workwear and like firefighter uniforms, for example. Like that is a very specific type of fit that actually has a direct relation to your physical safety. So, it's hugely important to get the fit correct if for those types of applications. I think it was mentioned a little bit outerwear, but with outerwear like jackets and clothes of that nature, now you're starting to really have to take into account geographical populations. How cold is it in some area? You're going to have underlayers underneath that. So the size that you recommend in a very cold geographical location for the same outerwear for the same jacket might be very different for a more temperate zone. So like these types of fit preference really start to play in when you think about it from that perspective. We also do sizing recommendations for children's wear from toddler all the way to adult. And so that's pretty interesting application where you start to think about how parents shop for their kids' clothes. And they're obviously thinking about their child growing. So you don't want to get a size that's going to work today because maybe you have to buy something different in the very near future, particularly when you think about like uniforms and things of that nature. So you want to like account for growth. So fit preference has a lot of intricacies and complexities, and it's highly dependent upon that, end application. But yeah, taking in that intended fit by design is a really good starting place. And then how can we start with that and then continue to learn off of that so that we can provide really like interesting and actionable insights so that brands can continue to learn on that, the concept of we think our fit is this, but in actuality, it's being worn in this way, in this cohort analysis or in this geographical population, et cetera.
Absolutely. We can control how we build it. We can control how we talk about it. We can never control how the consumer is going to wear it.
Right.
So that is a constant challenge. Absolutely.
Yeah.
How do we get some universal terms to use in this regard as well? Obviously, with sizing, we have small, medium, and large, and we have a standard for sizing. Is there a standard that's agreed upon in fit preference across different brands, or is this a little bit of a Wild West situation at the moment? I'll leave that open to whoever wants to jump in.
I'm over here laughing because from a tech designer's perspective, of course, we stay on top of our competitive sets. We look at the market regularly. Nomenclature is as much Wild West as sizing is. There's what Carhartt calls a relaxed fit might be somebody else's loose fit or somebody else's slim fit. The terms that are used when we talk about fit, some brands try to align with the market. Some brands come up with their own nomenclature around fit descriptors or even size descriptors too. But it's definitely a place where there's very little standardization across brands. And I think that's part of why consumers need tools or are looking for avenues to help understand, how is this going to fit me? Is this going to fit on my body? They're used to looking to reviews, and I think some more tech savvy consumers have started to adopt other technologies to enable them to help understand, okay, even from this brand, even if I know the brand and I've bought things from them before, how is this product going to fit me? Because names and terminology, I think, mean nothing.
Yeah, I can capture data. We collect data across various brands and retailers, right, globally, and I completely empathize. The taxonomy is so different brand to brand. How do you make sense out of this? So, if there are brands who are listening to this, our request would be that how do we bring reality into the size chart? Size charts are generic in nature, then don't reflect the actual measurement of the product. the actual measurement of the product deviate because there are tolerances. If we can bring the size charts to reality, there is so much of data available for all of us. We can do lots of analytics using the data in the public domain across various brands and actually help the consumer in a significant way. What we have done is we've looked at lots of online charts, because I used to also come from running an online business as a startup. What we saw was that we used to put a measurement chart to the customer in the warehouse. We used to measure when the brands deliver. We used to measure the actual measurement significantly off. For we were not sure. Just say S is this, M is this, L and XL is this, but that we had to normalize and ensure that as a B2C player, we were a brand aggregator. It's a multi-brand platform that we had to standardize, and even then we were not very accurate. What we were telling the consumer was not very accurate, because in the same brand, a particular style doesn't follow the same measurements. Different styles, because if it's for a Gen Z, it's a different measurement. Brand is same, right? Some other classic core products are having a different measurement. Fashion products are different measurements. So this is an area that I think there is a role to play. One, from a data and analytics side. Second is also improve the data quality that we are putting out there for the consumers.
Yeah, it's very difficult to collect free text data as well. It doesn't make it very easy to sort of aggregate that and build predictive analytics based on that.
And I was just going to riff off of this too. So of course, there's no standardization with sizing. I think everybody knows that probably. But in a sense, there's there is a silver lining to that, because if there was like some sort of global standard where all brands were adhering to some standardization, there would be probably a major inclusivity issue with sizing, where you then run risk of various segments like literally not being able to find clothes that fit. So, it'd have to be like highly comprehensive and just the most amazing standard ever. I mean, it's just kind of unrealistic, really. So it's the silver lining there. That's like the positive, is that brands can, take the initiative to really carefully consider their fits and make it a very important thing for the company and how they run and how they design their sizing. And like Carhartt's obviously demonstrated doing a great job with that. And so that's the silver lining on that, right? And then on what Ganesh was saying, like agreed size charts. Okay, so size charts most of the time are some sort of description of body measurements. Sometimes they can be some kind of description of like clothing measurements, but that the difference, like, is it a body measurement? Is it a clothing measurement? Is often not clear in the size chart. So that's confusing. And then if it is a body measurement, for example, end consumers don't know their hip circumference, their chest circumferences at any level of, accuracy. So, and of course, there's, descriptions on how to take a measuring tape and measure yourself, but like, who owns a measuring tape? It's got to be like 100%.
Our consumers own measuring tapes, but they're the rigid steel kind. They're a lot,
right.
They're not good for measuring your body with.
Right. I've heard stories of people taking out the hard ruler and being like, okay, I'm going to try. So that's not going to be accurate. So, obviously the size charts definitely not addressing the issue, and not to mention the fact that they're super confusing to begin with. So yeah, for sure, there's ways that we can do better to create a smarter size chart, which incidentally is one of our product names, Smart Size Chart. But yeah, there's ways that we can do better there to help the consumer understand their sizing, and agreed someone can be a different size in a brand depending on the style. So that's why it's so important to really understand like style specific differences on fit, and surface that understanding to the consumer. So like, you're not going to be ubiquitously usually one size, at least from our understanding of fit when working with brands across every style. So taking the, describing that fit preference piece to the consumer, all of these things, there's much better and smarter ways that we can go at approaching this.
Yeah, let's get into them. There's quite a few fit scan, like body measurement, body scanning apps and companies out there at the moment. But what are some of the better ways to collect body measurement data in a sort of scalable and, as you say, practical way for both the consumer and for the company doing it as well. So we can move away from these generic sort of geographic body scan studies. Ganesh, what are some of the best ways to do this?
No, I would leave to the other two panelists. I think they would be better positions on this question for sure.
Okay, there you go. Tiffany or Dana's up.
I'll jump in there. So it's all about adoption rates. Like that's number one. So you got to think of it from that perspective. So what can you put in front of a consumer during their regular, shopping experience? They're online browsing, they're sitting on a bus or something. What can you present in front of them that they will actually do? This is so important. So you don't want to put something in front of them that requires an onerous amount of effort. So we thought about that very deeply. We don't require certainly anyone pulling out a measuring tape, because those, as we reviewed, probably less than 50%. Although now I'm curious about the number. Maybe we should do a study on that. Actually own those things. But so, and also, requiring someone to change into tight-fitted clothes, stop everything they're doing, get off the bus, go home, change into tight-fitted clothes, and then take pictures and upload that. That also has a major adoption issue. You're just going to have major drop-off when you require someone to do that much stuff in order to get an understanding of their sizing. And so what we've done is made it in a way that has really high adoption by just, surveying questions to a consumer that people can generally answer about themselves, that don't require measuring tape, don't require pictures, etc. And this allows for, they're presented with this, they can answer it really easily, allows for really high adoptions. And that way you've moved past that step, right? So now you can start to surface all of the super valuable things for them, which is like their size and like how they're going to fit in the size, and let's start to track the purchase and returns to bring those actionable feedback loop insights that we talked about earlier. Starting with adoption rates, that's the, I think, first place to begin, and making it a way that's really easy for a consumer to engage with, that doesn't require too much effort, essentially.
Tiffany, what have you seen in this regard? Are you able to sort of gamify this for people to make it a fun process rather than an onerous one?
I think like Dana, she said, consumers are on the bus shopping on their phone. Carhartt has consumers call our customer service line from the bar because they like the bibs that the bib overalls that their buddy is wearing. So I think that understanding that level, and I know this is something our D2C team has worked really hard on, is understanding the level of engagement consumers are willing to put into it. Carhartt, like many other brands, we have a body measurement chart on our website, and there is a subset of consumers who have a tape measure, are willing to break it out and measure themselves. And we've fortunately got great results from the tools that we are providing. We're actually working on launching some additional, a more robust body measurement chart to put in front of our consumers, because we know there is a segment of consumers who do want that level of detail. They want to know how their body compares to the body that we build for. But that's probably not most consumers. And so that's where, right now we're looking at it, in that term of, that post-sale consumer feedback data. We've got our own dashboards built that triangulate sales returns and feedback. Our data scientists have built us, we've got a great data science team. They've built us, some natural language selection tools to build us a feedback score on our products based on what our consumers are saying. But that actual consumer engagement at the point of purchase is definitely an area of opportunity for us. Right now we've got multiple tools on our website, which allows consumers multiple paths. But what we're exploring with our D2C team is how to enhance that consumer path to purchase based on the analytics of who we know that consumer is, and how they've shopped in the past with us, and what products they've bought in the past from us. So it's definitely a journey that we're on in terms of partnering across business units to understand, between us and our D2C team and our user experience team for our website and our data scientists, how can we better enhance that consumer experience and potentially even provide multiple paths to purchase. If we know consumers are okay looking at body measurements, we'll give them a body measurement chart. If we know consumers might want more enhanced tools, or maybe it's a younger consumer who we might know is a little bit more tech savvy, maybe they're consumers who are going to be willing to be more engaged or go those extra steps to do a body scan or those types of things. So understanding how broad our consumer segment is and trying to then provide multiple paths to purchase based on the level of engagement we know that consumer is willing to give us.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But it's definitely a journey.
Yeah, yes, there's always ways I think you can improve that as well. We do have some questions from the audience. So obviously, I want to spend the last 10 minutes maybe getting into a few of those. So the first one is actually about designers, so not necessarily about consumer data, but that's fine. What do you think the role of designers will be in the future, given that some of the discussions today have suggested that computers might be able to create, well, I don't know if better is necessarily the correct term, but let me ask the question anyway. What do you think the role of designers will be in the future if computers can create better designs using data?
Yeah, I can give a go at it. Yeah, first of all, it's a great question. In every technology evolution, what has happened is that we've always moved up. You look at all transition, right, from landline to mobile phone into smartphone, right? The job remains, and we continue to. I think the question is, how can we use technology to augment what we already do? For example, today, I think if there is a designer today, and you know that 50 billion products go to landfill every year, these are all products we create. Right now, how do we ensure that we use technology to minimize this? It's about creating products which consumers love. I'm not saying it's all the creator problem. It's just not the creator problem. It's also the quantitative problem, because it's the design. It's also how much. There is no bad product if you made the right quantity. So it's not all the problem in creation. Sometimes we over make products. Products are good. We have actually done too much of it. So the question here is, if you just look at creator, then it's about how do I ensure that we make products which come very close to consumer needs. I think the role of technology is to bridge that gap with information and actionable insights, timely. And things are changing. It's a complex area, right? Things are changing so fast. At least we think it's AI plus human. It's people and AI or technology together. And people think that technology can run on its own. Every model that we run is trained by people. Without people, there is no data. Without data, there is no AI and algorithm. AI is actually people. If you ask me, that people are at the center of even AI functioning properly. If we feed bad data, AI is going to do wrong things. Technology will do. Therefore, I think people will be at the center of everything we'll do. It will minimize all our mundane activities. It will make us, superstars. So that's what I would say.
Go ahead.
just a quick add on to that is, I think out of all of the data we have accessible to us today, and I imagine this panning forward into the future, technology can provide us the data, but we as humans have to understand the so what. And that's where I've not seen technology be able to provide that. We can have data, but we still have to understand, especially from a brand perspective, how do we react to it? What is the right path coming out of this data for our consumer? We as humans are a lot better at that so what with the data that we have. And I think that's something I would see continuing for a really long time into the future.
Love that. So what?
Exactly. Just to add to this too, Ganesh, loved what you said of the question is really how can we use technology to augment what we already do? I totally agree with that. The element of so what, so it's not like this, we're replacing the people, we're actually adding tools to make what you do smarter, because you can, and add the feedback loop system when you release products to the market, like, additional texture and data around how it's performing. So it's all about augmenting what we do so that we can understand that so what. So I love all of that comment, all of those comments. So that's great.
It's interesting, the sort of role of designer, when I think with the context of this question, what do you think the role of designers will be in the future? This almost is the role of designers now, right? Is using this data to create better products. This isn't really a futuristic thing anymore. This is what we've been kind of talking about for this entire session. So I guess that reliance on data is just going to become more and more prevalent in the role of a designer. It's not just, scribbling something that they think looks nice on a piece of paper. Everything's informed by data and stuff already, right? I mean, Tiffany, I I hope that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. At Carhartt, our inspiration is our consumer. Prior to even starting to design for a new season, our designers are out in the field doing job site visits, working with our consumers, understanding what are the new industries that our consumers are working in so that we can build and develop the product for them. So how we gain those insights might change, or whether those insights come from traveling to a job site versus data that we're getting from somewhere else. Some of, maybe that ratio of insight or input into the design changes and where that data comes from. But I think that designer is absolutely going to still serve a purpose.
Yeah. I think we've got time for maybe one or two more before we go into some final points. Dana, this one's for you. Do you have any more examples of more intricate data? I believe this is in reference to when you were talking about getting quite granular with regards to geographical sizing. So in terms of the data sets that you get, when you were saying, I think you can even go from sort of one country to the next and things might be different.
Right. So yeah, we've been approached by some customers with that very example of, we've designed our sizing for this specific geographic population, and we want to expand to this market. Can you help us to understand what our fit coverage would be in that market with the data that we have? So that kind of thing. That question also, I suppose, could be approached too on like fit preference related elements and all the different ways you have to think about fit preference based on the application. One that comes to mind that I didn't mention too, but it was spoken about a little bit, is like, how can you relate the fits, so if you have a slim fit or an extreme slim fit or a regular fit or a traditional fit, and how can you kind of communicate that to the consumer so you can be the same size in a garment, for example, like a 15 collared neck size in a dress shirt. So how does that size 15 change fit wise if you were to go to a slim fit, a super slim fit, a regular fit, a traditional fit, like all the different words you can append to that. So that's like another element of fit preference where you can start to glean how that fit would be perceived on the person based on their body measurements and the relative design to the taper of that shirt and that dress shirt in this example. And so that's another kind of element of how you can slice and dice the data as it relates to fit preference. I don't know if that helps to answer the question. Is sort of
yeah, of course, population
versus fit preference. Yeah.
In terms of the collection of the data, Ganesh, I'm going to come to you with this one. Is it easier for Sorry, I've lost the question. Give me 2 seconds. All right, we'll go against that one. We do have another one though. So this is about the change management. So going from the old ways to the new. So we do have 2 minutes left. I'll tell you what, let's scrap that. I would like to get all of your final thoughts on data-driven design, how we've used data, given the stuff that we've talked about today and your opinions on it, because I think that will take us perfectly to the hour. And Ganesh, I'm going to start with you, please.
Yeah, my closing comments would be to just put consumer at the center of every decision making in the creation process, wherever possible. Because finally, I think I completely agree, the North Star is consumer. Can we, instead of saying, let's be consumer obsessed, can we say, can we be our consumer? I would leave it at that.
Thank you. Tiffany, you're up next.
Yeah, from a product development perspective, you already use data in so many ways, and I'm really excited to see how, as new technologies evolve and ways we can interact with our consumers to enhance our consumers' perspective and really allow our consumers to truly understand how our product is going to fit them before they ever before they ever receive that product and try it on their body. Setting those consumer expectations and using data and technology to help us do that is essential to brand success, brand loyalty, reducing returns, or even getting to the point of eliminating returns when we can truly set those consumer expectations. So that'll set any brand up for success in the future, as well as being more sustainable in eliminating returns too.
Fantastic. Dana?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree with it, what everyone's been saying. I mean, the consumer is the North Star. And of course, I think having tools for the consumer to, help them in their sizing and fit journey when they're in their shopping process, and also utilizing this as a great opportunity to continuously collect consumer data so that we can create some really actionable insights and valuable feedback loops and make this a cyclical process, really, so that we can improve products for our consumers for that North Star that we're all marching towards.
Yeah. Fantastic. Guys, that was such a great session. I've made so many notes myself. I hope everyone else listening has. Really, really great. So I just want to thank you all for joining us today. Really appreciate it.